Hello, welcome to Subconscious Sundays. I am your co host, Reverend April Kling Meyer, and this is my dear and wonderful co host, Tim Freeman.
Hey,
And
welcome everybody.
yes, welcome. We're here to talk about Alone or Together. Yep. Not
Pretty
necessarily a
relevant.
choice you have to make, not necessarily a binary. And I'll go into that later. But before we begin, what shall we do?
Yes, we have just a few things to share at the beginning of each episode, just to frame what we're doing here for everybody. If you're joining us for the first time, awesome to have you with us. We want to make this kind of a laid back, fun, entertaining way to discuss topics that are potentially heavy.
We always want to remain open and inviting and welcoming to those of you who have questions or ideas to respectfully bring those to the conversation.
Yes, and this is our renewed weekly ritual here, where we are honored to gather our shared um, community here in this sacred space, this online community.
And while we welcome your ideas and questions, we are here to share our knowledge while hearing your response as well. And our core values are to remain respectful, remain rooted in compassion for yourself and others, promote growth and expansion, and create a supportive community. So thank you very much for being with us again this week. So without further ado, I shall go into this week's Facebook question, which is, do you prefer working alone or with others, and why? Why? And Kat responded, I'd rather not work at all. To which I responded, yeah, I mean, me too. But obviously, nobody really wants to work where we're not necessarily talking about employment. So I drilled down a little bit further in the comments and said, I don't necessarily mean this in a workplace context. Could also be a creative context. So when I say work, I mean like a very loose term, not quite to include like the physics term of work, or work times effort equals result or something. I don't remember what the equation was. You know what I'm talking about, though, I think, from physics class in high school. But the idea that when we're thinking about the ways we do everything that we do to be who we are and live the way we live, do we prefer to do that alone or together? That's the question. And Aaron simply said alone. Okay. I asked him, and why? And he chose not to say why, but maybe he just assumed that I knew that because I know him. Jill says, alone. It's more efficient.
It's, it sure can be.
It sure can be. Anne Marie says, alone. 100% my thoughts are loud, complicated, and hard to sort through. I don't like talking to anyone while I work because I'm talking to myself and my cat. Anytime I had to do group projects in school, I hated it. The whole group projects thing, like, I kind of felt that that was coming. I just did a group project in school and it was awesome. So, I mean, I was like remembering, like, just a few weeks ago how much I feared having to do this group project for exactly what Amory is talking about.
Well, what a learning experience, though. I mean, that's your first experience really having to negotiate what you want and what the other people want.
Right, exactly. So Martin says alone, but sometimes I got to get help. Many hands make light work. Right. Sometimes you just can't do it alone at all. And then Rachel says, this is a two-parter. I like doing my thinking and working time alone. I feel so much stronger in my thought process when I don't have the pressure of other people's energies. And she actually drilled down to define energies a little bit, and I'll just paraphrase what she said. Basically, the idea of other people's like, she was really talking about maintaining energetic boundaries is what she was talking about, reference to a previous episode, which she does watch the show. So hi, Rachel. So that's really kind of what she's talking, maintaining all these energetic boundaries. Is it gets tiresome. It requires a lot of effort. She says, however, I love to do work for others. I love the energy of gathering their problem and then coming back with a solution. So Rachel really likes the idea of problem solving for others and with others, which I completely and totally relate to. I think you do too, Tim. Obviously, we're in working professions. That's kind of a requirement for the job.
Yeah.
And then
We
to
can't
use,
do our work alone. Well, we
yeah,
do, but
right, yeah,
yeah. Or we try.
sort of. This sort of thing is more or less alone, or at least what gives the illusion of being alone. I'll talk about in a second. Um, so as you can see, I'm kind of gradually moving from the alone comments to the together comments, and I'm working through the hybrids right now. Both working alone is nice to just get stuck in, but lonely to do all the time. Sometimes teamwork can be enjoyable with the right people. So, and yes, the right people. Let's talk about that in a second. I promised everybody in the promotion of this week's episode that there would be a surprise twist. So bear in mind that that is coming. Okay. Not to you, Tim. You know everything I'm going to say. I'm not going to surprise you. It really depends on what the project is and who the group is. If it's something that needs many hands in the team, that's another second mention of many hands and makes that work. And the team is responsible and creative. I love working together. But if I don't feel connected to others, I want to work alone. So Izzy needs connection. I really wish, I always promise everybody when they make a comment that I'm only going to say their first name. And I really wish here, since I know all these people, I could say like what they do for a living, or I could say like how they're related to us and stuff like that. But I promised I wouldn't, so I won't. But it's just very interesting. Let me say, like, it's been very, very, very telling, like, to me what people are saying about working alone or together in terms of what they do. So I'll give some kind of some general commentary to not reveal anybody's like full identity in just a moment. Jennifer says it depends on the task and who I'm working with. This is becoming a repeated comment. Roberta says generally with others, but I also need my alone time. I will say this about Roberto, he's a professional creative. That I will say that about Roberto. So that's very, yeah, and a very collaborative creative, I must say. Sabrina says others. I like collaboration, and honestly, I get too bored if I'm solo for too long. I also need solo focus time, especially when sorting through projects and scheduling. But other than that, group. And Gloria says, I love collaborating. The end product is just feels bigger, more energetic. My best comes to the surface, and I feel so much more blessings when it works. So if the magic happens, the magic happens. I agree with Gloria. Um, I don't disagree with any of these. None of these are right or wrong. I feel like I should say that at every single episode. It's just getting a really interesting look at the spectrum of things. I know that what I'm about to say in my sermon might seem like I'm being a bit preachy to certain people, but I want to just I'll try to make this sermon a little bit round, and go back, begin at end at the beginning a little bit to remind everybody that really there truly is no wrong or right answer here. But want to just talk a little bit about. Well, first, before I do that, Tim, let me ask you that same question. Do you prefer to work alone or together?
How funny. I was actually going to ask you, and I was like, well, maybe I'll wait till she says what she has to say. That'll make more sense. But I'm kind of like the middle of the road on that with some of these folks and these hybrid responses. And this kind of calls in like introvert, extrovert type of
Oh
delineation.
yeah. Thank you for
I think
saying
I'm
that,
like,
because I didn't have that.
yeah.
I didn't plan to bring
Well, I
that up,
think
but that's a good thing to bring in.
well, I think everybody's got a balance here, right? Some people are like super one way or another, but I agree. We can, with I think it was Gloria said, sometimes the results can be bigger and more exciting, more energy into it when we've got the right, alchemy with people. But we all need our alone time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
There's
I think
something
we
else
all
though here that I think you might be talking about. Somebody mentioned, I forget who, apologies, that they get bored when they're alone. I think this is super common, and maybe even more common, that people don't feel comfortable, and bored could be not comfortable with alone time. So
I'll
this,
definitely be going there
yeah,
today.
okay.
Yeah. which is why we'll see. Like there's a balance here. And again, we talk about balance last season. So Bear says, alone. I am an overthinker. So if I make a mistake, I know immediately why I made the mistake and I learn it and I move on. If I was working with someone and they screw up, I would waste too much time trying to figure out why they made the mistake and then waste more time trying to fix it. It would be endlessly exhausting. I can think of the people who answered alone, what I know of them. I'm like, there's so many people in here I want to introduce to each other at this point. They're doing these exercises every week before the show. I'm like, oh man, I hope these people become friends. But yeah,
Well,
definitely Bear and Jill would be worth getting together.
well,
Um,
I think this is super common for people too. And ironically, here we are. We're all together here, but we're also each alone in our own environments on our computers
yeah,
in some way. So there's a kind of a hazy boundary here that I think we'll get into with alone and
definitely.
together.
And to answer your question, I definitely prefer to work with other people. And to get into a little bit into the origin story of Subconscious Sundays, I have been a solo act with creativity and spirituality for such a long time. And eventually that became very clear that it wasn't going to grow. It wasn't going to expand in any way possible if unless I included other people, which I had been craving. Like it wasn't just like, oh God, I guess I need to bring in other people. I guess I need some help. I had been craving collaboration. So I talked to Tim and then we decided to do this. So this is an example of how aloneness can turn into togetherness. And it's also an example of somebody what said like the right people, like having the right people come in and be helpful is it's night and day. But when you have to work with the wrong people, like say the people who mentioned that group projects were like the worst thing about school. So I'm going to talk
Well,
a little
April,
bit.
you're the right people for working together. I'll say that.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's how I feel about you, which is why we're here. Um, so I want to make a really, really emphatic point that aloneness and togetherness, in terms of their importance to survival, are pretty equal. We need to be able to be alone. We need to be able to be ourselves in our aloneness, to sit with ourselves. We need alone time. That we need solo time to digest everything that we're going through, to process our emotions. Sometimes that requires aloneness. It can require other people as well. But there is such a beauty to being alone, and it is important to our survival to learn how to do that. I'll be very vulnerable here and say that I didn't really confront how afraid I was of being alone until I was in my mid-20s and I lived by myself the very first time and learned to love it, learned to really love it. And now that I don't live alone anymore, I really crave it. So there's that.
Well, I have a question here, if you don't mind me jumping
Oh,
in with this.
of
This is
course I don't
for
mind.
everybody. This is for you and everybody joining us. I found that I appreciate my alone time much more as I've gotten older.
Hmm.
Does anybody else feel that way here?
Yeah.
Let us know in a comment. Has that been the same track for you?
Yeah, definitely. If you definitely feel like age is a factor here, mention how and why, or if it doesn't make a difference to you, or maybe you liked your alone time better when you were younger and you like to be together with more people. I'm kind of getting to be, for me, Tim, it's like a little bit different. Like I would say that my being alone was really lonely as a child. I like being together with other people. When I got a little older, then I had to live with other people, and then dormitories and relationships, and then I was like alone time, alone time, alone time. And now it's gotten to where I'm kind of making this back swing a little bit. Like I need more people in my life. I need more collaboration. I need more energies in my life, but it needs to be the right people. It's so important. That's my trip on this right now. So I want to make also the point that to fear aloneness, which I completely identify with in my early 20s, was to fear the self and to fear one's own emotions and to fear particularly grief, like to fear to be unalone, to be seeking not having to be alone rather than companionship, just really trying to avoid aloneness is to distract yourself from whatever it is you don't want to be feeling. And I think that we all fall a little bit, I think a lot of extroverts kind of tend to fall into that trap quite a bit. But fearing others,
Eh,
yeah,
Just, I mean, I think this is such a good point, April. Like the distracting ourselves when we're alone and we're kind of faced with an unpleasant. A lot of this happens at the level of the subconscious. I just want
right,
to make that point because this is where we help. This is where we help you. This is where the rubber meets the road. When people are
absolutely.
consciously aware of the ways in which they're distracting themselves from facing unpleasant emotions and the way that plays out in the world and our beliefs and our behaviors in the world, and it gets to the point where our limited conscious mind doesn't put the two and two together. And so we have to get down to the subconscious, the deeper parts of ourselves to really be able to address those emotions in a constructive way so that we're not doing the distractions so that we are more comfortable within ourselves to be alone or together, right?
That's right. And I promised you that plot twist in today's episode. Here we are. Plot twist. To fear others is to fear the same things I mentioned with being fearing aloneness. It's to fear the self, to fear one's own emotions, and to fear grief. It's the same fears. Therefore, fearing being alone and fearing being with other people's are the same fear. Plot twist! So I anticipating kind of the response to that was like, well, I don't really fear, being around other people. I just fear what others are capable of. And yeah, I mean, that points to fearing the grief they will cause you, fearing the emotions that other people's emotions or activities, fearing the emotions that what other people do will affect you to have. And I wanted to just say that fearing what others could do or are capable of based on past experience, even, is to witness and internalize what others do as a result of they themselves fearing others and perpetuating that fear by continuing your own. So, say you had, okay, no, I won't go into you language with this. I'll go into I language with this. I'll be vulnerable and talk about a past experience. Um, I had some stuff stolen out of my car, and I became very, very vigilant about not leaving stuff in my car ever since then. And I mean, Tim, like vigilant. Like I don't leave anything in my car. I don't even leave trash in my car. Not to say that my car is immaculate or anything, but I don't leave anything in my car anymore. And it is this
Once
idea that,
bitten,
like,
twice shy.
yeah, exactly. But the idea that, like, I'm going out into the world and I fear kind of the darkness of what people are capable of. I mean, this manifests a lot in like pursuing relationships or friendships, right? Like going out and making new friends and that sort of thing, because I've been hurt before, right? Um, it's really just witnessing the fact that other people hurt us, steal things from us, insult us, take us for granted because they themselves fear us, fear what other people are doing or could do or are capable of, and therefore doing all these things to kind of protect themselves or even distract themselves from having to fear that fear. So by fearing, we're merely that fear and it becomes cyclical. Is what I'm saying making sense?
Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, we can see this very clearly on a personal level, and then we can expand that to a community level, a societal level.
Yeah. So Bears weighed in on the idea of aloneness being more of something you want more and more as you get older. She says, "Yes, I'm a crabby old hermit." There's a lot of togetherness in Bear's life. Good, good quality togetherness. Let's see here. I wanted to bring in Course in Miracles again. Or talk about, and I've actually used this exact quote in a previous episode. Bonus to you if you can name the episode in the comments where I've quoted this before. But in my defenselessness, my safety lies. It's from lesson 153. Now, every time I bring up Course in Miracles, I want to say that like there's a lot of people who don't like it. There's a lot of people who have very valid criticism of Course in Miracles because it can be a bit. In fact, I just saw like the little like viewer number drop a little bit when I brought in Course in Miracles. I'm like, oh, that's somebody who doesn't like Course in Miracles. I'm sure it has nothing to do with that. But anyway, the idea that in defenselessness is if we're truly defenseless is the most safe we can be because we're not being controlled by our fear. Is that we're operating in our lives with the idea that there's nothing we can personally do to allay or protect or secure ourselves against what other people are going to do. Other people are, players going to play, don't hate the player, hate the game kind of thing. No, kidding. It's people are going to do what they do. There's not a lot of worrying or fearing that's going to prevent that. And the idea that worrying about it, like getting emotional about it, getting wrapped up in the fear about it, the idea that doing that will somehow protect us is a bit silly, right? So just wash that away from your body and your identity, and you can just live a life that is purely defenseless, and you'll be safer in your own body. You'll feel better about your life, and you can be more, you exist, to put it in the term of Course in Miracles, to exist more in a state of love and the way that will be in the world the way that it truly is, and see the world as it truly is. And Bear just says, I am, damn it, a crabby hermit. So I wanted to just fine.
Well,
I
and that's,
mea culpa,
I mean,
Bear.
it's like she's making a joke clearly, but
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
more or less, but this does call in like we can build a little bit of an ego identity around alone or together, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and that can reinforce certain positive or negative behaviors.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
Yeah. Speaking of subconsciousness, I want to talk a little about where the idea of like um kind of the way that we view aloneness or is sort of like this lofty thing, like this exalted way of being. I want to talk about rugged individualism. So this is plot twist number 2. I said I'd promised one, but it's plot twist number 2. I've got 2 plot twists today. So rugged individualism is a social construct. It's actually a colonial construct. The idea of ourselves as individuals, meaning that all the philosophers who have written about the individual and the self and all of the science around the identification of the self and the ways that we break our identities up into different parts of the self, all centered around the idea of individualism, and it all centers around colonial thought. And it really and truly is kind of like the idea of the day kind of started that way. It really kind of started around, this is what I'm learning in school, by the way. It started around the concept of land ownership, if you can believe that. It began in Europe with the idea of people owning land, and those people being the only people that had rights, and that the only people who had a voice in government. And that manifested in the United States in various ways, but one of those ways was that for a long time, only people who owned land could vote. But the idea of rugged individualism as a concept, it was kind of be turned into a bit of a marketing tactic when America was being colonized, to not just sell land, but the idea of just land as a commodity. Because before that, when it came to indigenous peoples, the concept of owning land was really not a thing. And indigenous peoples around the world tend to think of themselves as being owned by the land. And that's if they really had to put their finger on it, which they didn't really even see themselves as separate from the land, that it was a part of them and they were a part of it. So this whole idea only came about centuries ago, this idea of the rugged individualist, the aloneness being the ideal state of being. And when you think about how that would work legally speaking, if you make it to where only individuals can own property, you overcomplicate the process of tribes being able to own property. And you overcomplicate the process of groups of individuals owning property. So it makes sense that if you're colonizing a bit of land, that you would want to make it very difficult for a tribe of indigenous people to claim ownership. Legally speaking, making it very easy for what it was typically European male and wealthy people to own the land. And the legalities of that gave preference to that. And so gradually, over time in the West, specifically, we have absorbed these individualist and not in non-indigenous concepts subconsciously through centuries of this mythology. Like the idea of the cowboy is not at all the reality of a cowboy. I won't even go into that. Google it. Through mythology, propaganda, and social structure. So even the concept of the nuclear family is a relatively new concept to uphold this idea of land ownership of the individual. So we have to really go into our own minds at this point in this topic and think on a subconscious level how much of this desire to be alone, the desire to work alone, the desire to create alone, how much of that, and I don't have the answer for you, but we have to ask ourselves how much of that is a subconscious programming of the culture in which we've been raised and soaked up all of these centuries of marketing tactics, propaganda, mythology, and social structure. It's something worth pondering. And I will finish with the spiritual concept of the ego, that identification with one's own ego is to see the world through a lens of separateness, and the identification with the inner self, the identification with spirit, is to see ourselves as part of a whole, not only that we are the same, but we are all parts of the same singular oneness. So food for thought.
Awesome. Nice final point on that for sure. Something about you were talking about, the mythology around rugged individualism. There's something here too that's maybe a little older that kind of plays into it. I just want to bring it in briefly, but there's this archetype of the hermit. I mean, Bear brought that into the discussion here.
Yeah.
Crabby old hermit. So, and then there's, some of the comments where people were talking about being distracted by or kind of moved off track by other people's influences, their energies, whatever.
Energies.
Yeah. And, arguably that's why there's the archetypal hermit in the cave, right? There. But to bring it back to your final point there, presumably they're
Mhm.
cultivating a sense of oneness with everything while they're alone. So this is where this kind of paradox of alone or together can play out in a way. That just want to kind of that's kind of interesting for those folks who do feel like they work more alone. Perhaps in working more alone, you can indeed cultivate a sense of oneness with others and everything.
That's true. And again, boundaries, maintaining good boundaries allows you to do one or the other more efficiently, which efficiency was brought into the fray here. It also allows you to protect yourself from the energies of other people in ways that you don't consent. And it's really this idea that we have to achieve balance. We have to achieve the unique balance that we are comfortable with and capable of aloneness and togetherness. And both are just, but I will say that there is an equality between how crucial it is to be alone and work alone as it is to be able to be alone and work alone, sorry, be together with others and work together with others for our own survival. I personally see this needing that last thing I mentioned about rugged individualism and this idea of like the rugged individualist. We have to go in the hermit, which is so important to bring up here. The idea to cleanse that programming from ourselves on a subconscious level, I think, is going to become more and more crucial as we move into the future of this planet. This idea that we need to protect the earth, what we need to think about ecological consequences of rugged individualism and land ownership, and this idea that profit over people is going to have to reverse. And the only way that's going to have to reverse is that we start working together. So I got a little choked up just saying that, but it's like, it's true. We have to really question why the narrative is that rugged individualism is the way, the way. It's not the only way, it's a way. And we have to also see that there's a reason for that. And we have to turn things around. We have to be able to turn around this idea that colonialism and capitalism are the answer or the way. And we have to start thinking about other ways of being. And it's going to involve a lot of us working more with other people and being more collaborative as people, and also seeing ourselves as part of that whole non-egoic thinking of the self, spiritual thinking of the self.
Awesome.
Not
Yeah,
easy, but we got to try. And I know that that is what your hypnosis is about today. So I will hand it over to
great.
you. It is that time.
Yeah, and we want to make this short and sweet for you guys. Like we aim for 30 minutes. So thank you for sticking with us if you're still with us. This hypnotic meditation, I think it's probably going to be about 10 minutes or so. So if you want to settle into a comfortable position where you will be able to relax very deeply for a few minutes undisturbed. I wanted to, as you're doing that, I just want to say a few words about trusting ourselves. This is something April and I discussed in regards to alone and together. But when we practice stabilizing a calm nervous system, strengthening our connection between our conscious and our subconscious minds with meditation or more directly with hypnosis, it allows us to be more fully present in our daily lives, more present and aware of our own inherent power, our own inherent security, less worried about the past or the future, more comfortable and secure when alone or with others. And really allows us to notice aspects of ourselves that may undermine our sense of self-trust. So there's just I had some neuroscience bits that were really interesting, but in the interest of time, I'm going to really paraphrase this. Alex Korb's book, The Upward Spiral, he mentions, I thought this was really interesting. He says, despite their differences, pride, shame, and guilt all activate similar neural circuits. And interestingly, pride is the most powerful of these emotions at triggering activity in these regions, except in the rewards center where guilt and shame win out. So guilt and shame are very powerful emotions that can erode our self-trust. This is where we were talking about those unpleasant emotions that we might distract ourselves from. And guilt and shame might be contributing to our unwillingness to connect with others or even connect with the deeper parts of ourselves. But this explains why it can be so appealing to heap guilt and shame on ourselves, because they're activating the brain's reward center. So, and this can make us worry. Worry can be a difficult emotion that we're left with when we're alone. So, and then what do neuroscientists say about worry? What's kind of like an antidote here? Well, gratitude is a good way to kind of get out of that loop. But go ahead and settle in. We're going to do a hypnotic meditation here. Allow yourself to relax. Sit comfortably. If you've got glasses, you might want to take them off. Uncross your legs, uncross your arms. And as you settle in, just taking a deep breath. As you exhale, Release any tension in your body. And with each breath, you sink even deeper into a state of deep calm and tranquility. Now, focus on a spot above your natural eye gaze. If you're inside, maybe it's a spot on the ceiling, the wall, it's above your natural eye gaze, looks like this. Really eagle eye it. Focus really in on that one little spot, all the little details of it. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, look through that spot with a relaxed gaze. It's almost like you can see what's on the other side of that wall right now. And when you're ready, close your eyes. Good. Now relax your jaw. And as you do, your shoulders drop and you're sending a signal to your entire body that now is the time to relax. Relax your jaw. Good. And gradually slow down your breathing. Get into a comfortable, slow rhythm of breathing with a longer exhalation, comfortably moving all the air out of your lungs, and then getting into just a comfortable, slower rate of breathing. All of these things help empower us to calm our nervous system at any time we need to. Access the deeper parts of ourselves. Now relax the back of your tongue. This will help to decouple your tongue from the part of your brain preparing to speak. And it allows your mind to have new thoughts. You're not preparing to respond. There's nothing to do right now except focus on the sound of my voice and continually relax with each breath you exhale. And as you focus on relaxing the back of your tongue, you become even more comfortably relaxed. Now drop your consciousness into your heart, whatever that means to you. Often we think about the seat of our consciousness in our head. Drop your consciousness into your heart and take your attention to the surface beneath you now. Sense of gravity gently holding you to the earth, letting you feel even more comfortable, secure, settled, supported by life itself. And as you take in your next deep breath, you focus on the feeling of gravity supporting you, and it helps you send your awareness down into the earth, deep, deep through the layers of the earth, all the way to the very center of the earth, grounded, supported. And as that awareness fades, you go even more deeply and even more comfortably relaxed, grateful for the support that you feel, even just from the earth. And now you're in harmony with the pulse of the planet, and you'll send this feeling of relaxation all the way from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. 1, 2, 3. And as you take in another deep breath, allow your awareness to reach upwards, up, all the way up, as far into the heavenly realm of inspiration and insight as you can send it to the very center of the universe. Now call in your higher power, whatever that is to you. All the loving guidance of your spiritual allies, if you have those beliefs, call in that energy of support and inspiration from something higher, something bigger than you, and know that an all encompassing love now fills you and your environment, and that you are deeply, deeply loved. And as you bring your awareness all the way back down into your body, let that grounded, nurturing energy of the earth and the wisdom of the clarity of the divine commingle in this balance point of your heart. It's like a horizon. You feel at once grounded, settled, calmer, and more open to inspiration, and a real sense that you're blessed with the bounty of life. Good. Now imagine a warm golden light surrounding your body, filling you with an even deeper sense of peace and tranquility, almost weightless, very spacious. And as you focus on this sense of spaciousness all around you, it's almost as if you might feel like you're floating. You might not be able to tell where your body ends and the rest of your world begins. Good. And you continue to feel this golden light washing away any last bit of stress or tension, leaving you in a state of deep relaxation and stillness. And as you slow your rate of breathing even further, even more slowly and relaxed, you notice just how still your body and your mind can become. And you get just still enough to start to feel the flow of life all around you. Warm, luminous. It's almost like the light of the full moon all around you. Now drop back into that flow and just let go into that flow. Feel that now. Take your attention back to that sense of spaciousness all around you, that comfortable floating sensation. You become a little more aware of your own inner power. And maybe even it's just a glimpse, but it's there and you feel it. It's as if your body has become a cup that gets a little more inner power poured into it now, starting at your feet, a little more light pouring in to your body, starting at your feet. And you feel that light, that inner power building now. It's a sense of trust, warm, comfortable, loving, and from this place of deeper awareness. Repeat to yourself silently now 3 times. I trust myself in this moment. Silently, I trust myself in this moment. I trust myself in this moment. Now, again, call in your allies, those other powerful beings in your physical or your spiritual life who support you, who love you deeply. And one by one, you become aware of them, aware of each face, each presence. And as each one reveals itself, first impression, whatever you notice is exactly right here. As you become aware of each one of them, each of these faces, you notice that sense of inner power strengthening, a little more power and light filling up that cup from your feet all the way up to your knees now. And with each face you notice, each individual, this feeling of power and trust, that light continues to fill your body, getting even brighter now, up your legs, up to your abdomen. It's so comfortable and warm and secure. It's dissolving any last bits of tension, up to your shoulders, down your arms, out the tips of your fingers, and back to your shoulders. This warm light getting even brighter now. You might notice someone else here who loves you deeply, who supports you in your life. Filling this cup with light all the way up your neck, into your face, relaxing all the small muscles in your face, all the way up to your forehead, relaxed, confident, to the top of your head. This light, this power and trust is all within you. And as you become aware of it again, it suddenly becomes twice as bright. It's within you, but it's strengthened by the presences you've invited in. This light gets a little brighter with these influences of those who support and love you, even when they're not right there in front of you. You trust this sense of power, this light feeling feels good in your body. It feels good to be loved and supported. Right now, you're doing this for yourself, and there are others in your realm who support that as well. You feel grateful for this light, this feeling you have in your body right now. Thank you for being here right now, being still enough to become aware of this power, this trust that's already within you. And you feel grateful. And on the count of 3, we'll emerge from this hypnotic meditation feeling awesome, feeling even more powerful. 1, getting a sense of that light again, filling you from the bottom of your feet all the way to the top of your head. And at once again, it gets even twice as bright. 2, bringing your attention back to that sense of gravity gently supporting you. The whole of the earth is supporting you. The whole of the universe is supporting you in this moment. And you're aware of that and grateful. And 3, wiggling your toes wiggling your fingers, open your eyes, and right back here with us on Subconscious Sundays.
Thank you so much. That was actually quite touching. As some of
Awesome.
you know who watched the show, I recently lost a very dear friend, Parker, and he was one of the first faces to come in to say hello. It was really lovely. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I also kind of want to say just a few things before we close. We could have, you mentioned flow a lot in that meditation, and we could have just as easily named this show ag- with or against the flow. And what comes to mind is the image of the graphic of the fish that's going against the direction of the school of fish. But we also talk in spirituality about going with the flow of the universe. And the discernment here is knowing when to be alone and when to be with everybody else, collectively being larger than just the individual. And I also want to name that if any of my clients are watching this, every single one of them is probably going to think this is about them. And I have to say that it's about all of them, and it's about you, and it's a Tim, and it's about me, and it's about us too, and it's about just a lot of the things that we're seeing and the things that we see and what we select in the topics of our weekly show. Um, this idea
And what
is,
we're helping people with, too.
yeah, we're helping every one of my clients. I would say, I was saying to Tim the other day, every single one of my clients is along a very specific pipeline. It's somewhere along this pipeline of I work with a bunch of other people and I don't like it and I want to go it alone, all the way to the other end of that pipeline of I have been working all by myself, all alone. I feel so isolated and I need other people to collaborate with me. I need other people to work with me and I crave that. And none of them are happy with where they're at in that pipeline. So there has to be better balance here, is the point. Not one end of the pipeline is better than the other end. And mentioning clients, and this, I think it's a good segue to just say that the whole point of the show is to let all of you know that we're here to help. We keep booking links in every single description of every single show that we do. So if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you got to this through a Facebook invite, the invite itself and the description of that and the description of the video on YouTube have links to book either time with Tim one on one or me one on one. If you want to work with both of us, that is an option to do that. The direction is the same. Click time to book time with Tim to do hypnosis, where you are in a place where you are receiving that healing, or you book time to talk with me, where you're in a position to kind of be more of the outward work, putting things outward into the work that you're doing spiritually. So we see working with the two of us as an option to receive as well as give into the work, and achieving a bit of a balance there. So book time to talk with
And I
either
just
one
want
of
to
us.
jump in, too,
Oh yes,
on
please.
this. Subconscious Sundays, April is a interfaith minister, so we tend to have a little bit of a more of a spiritual focus in this show.
Yep.
So it's important to both of us, but we might have some people who are joining us who, might not be so spiritually oriented. So I just want to say a little bit about the woo woo factor here, with the hypnotic meditation. Hypnosis is not all about that, and neither necessarily is the work with
Right.
April. So
Right.
if you're not quite on that woo level, we can definitely still work with you and your belief system and help you find what is in within your deeper parts of yourself that needs to come out and you become aware of.
That's right. In fact, the reason I became ordained as an interfaith minister, so I could be helpful and visible to those who aren't necessarily religious or spiritual. That
Right.
is inclusive of those types of folks. But that I consider myself among you in a lot of ways. So I love woo, but I see the need to sometimes put that aside, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I really think it's important for you to know as clients that you control that dial up or down, how woo we go or how not woo at all we are. Just book time for us to talk. The first time you talk to either of us online is absolutely free. It's a chance to kick our tires, get to know us, see if we're a fit. And from there, we can discuss pricing and options for you to move with us ongoing. But it's no obligation at all. Click the link and we'll do our best to support and help you along your path. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here.
Yes. Thank you.